Well, if you ever wanted to see a game where neither team wanted to win, may I present Thursday's A's Reds game?
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans, and hello, Reds fans, and welcome to a Locked On A's, Locked On Reds crossover. This is the podcast where we talk about your Cincinnati Reds or your Philadelphia, Kansas City, Oakland, Sacramento, and Las Vegas Reds all season long. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. On the Locked On A's side, please call me Sully. On the Locked On Reds side, may we present Red Leader, we see the Star Wars thing there. Red Leader standing by. Tell me your name again.
I'm gonna probably level more with Porkins than with Red Leader, but yeah. What's up, Sully? It's good to be with you. And I love the Freudian slip, by the way. The Philadelphia, Kansas City, Oakland, Sacramento, Las Vegas Reds is what you said.
Oh, is that what I said? Oh, wow.
I know you meant A's. But that's okay. Both teams were both teams on Thursday night. Like, I don't think either one knew who was actually going to win that ball game.
Nope. That's Jeff Carr. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Hey, terms apply. Download Gametime today. And what time is it? It's game time. Follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And Jeff, where are you in the world?
You can follow me on X at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs, and you can follow me on TikTok as well, the same handle at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs.
There you go. You keep those Fs coming. You know when they have a game where they have the win probability rate?
What was it, like the Rocky Mountains?
No, there was no win, bro. This was loss probability rate.
Yes.
This was a weird game. The A's had a pitcher who allowed 2 hits through 4 innings. They also had a player who hit 3 home runs. Blade got 5 hits. A
heck of a catch out there in center field.
An amazing
and gun down
catch.
Espinal at third. Yeah.
And they had a 6-1 lead after 4 innings. And then everything went wrong for the A's. And then everything went wrong for the Reds. And then, Locked On A's fans, rewind the tape. The genesis of this loss began 2 days ago. And I'll explain myself later. I will also say, I'm going to, we'll break down some specific things here, but I will say the A's previous series, they lost to Milwaukee. They lost 2 games to Milwaukee, but they won the finale. And there was something about that was like, oh, well, they salvaged the last game. This one, they won the first 2 games, lost the last one, and it feels a little bit like, when you see a bad sequel, and it's like, I know it's like, the other films were good, but
that Caddyshack 2.
This was Blues Brothers 2000.
I'm just glad that we had this game to talk about, though, because from a Reds perspective, this series was god-awful, and it might have been the last nail in the coffin if you fancied yourself any kind of positive about the Reds' slim to none to absolutely fading playoff hopes. I still think that even with the amazing walk-off win there in Game 3, I think it's over. We're packing it in for 2025. But I mean, at least Thursday was fun for a sense
Yeah.
of the win. But for much of that game, even when the Reds were coming back, you mentioned they were down 6-1. They come back, they take the lead 7-6. I believe 3 of those runs came off of bases loaded walks. So
Yeah.
it's like good on the lineup for really battling back, I guess. I mean, hey, you got to take ball 4, right?
Yeah, and I gotta just boil down a couple things here because 2 players had 2 of the worst relief performances I've seen in a long time. Now the kid Ginn, is it Ginn or Jin? He's now has one more start than me in the major leagues. He looked great through the first 4 and then was super nervous. At one point, he hit Espinal on an 0-2 pitch. I mean, he's on the verge of getting a strikeout, and he plunks him. And the fact that he even left that inning with the lead, he entered at 6-2. It looked like the A's were cruising, and then it was 6-4. The fact that he even still had the lead, and it was clear they were trying to get him through that 5th inning so he could get a win. Which, by the way, is yet another example of why the win stat has to be put into a cesspool.
Yeah.
The only reason to leave this poor guy who looked like Don Knotts on the mound at that point with his knees buckling and his eyes bulging out. Sorry for the not up-to-date reference. Why is he still pitching at this point? Oh, yeah, because of the win stat, but also because, the A's have been leaning on their bullpen a lot. It's like, hey, maybe we don't, go to the bullpen in the 5th. Can you at least get us to the 6th? So I do understand that. All right, but they got out of that inning at least with the lead. Then in came Boyle, and Joe Boyle, who has been
Former Reds prospect,
and he's been a starter, and he's not done well as a starter. So they're trying to use him out of the bullpen as they're trying. The A's are saying, "All right, let's just get younger." And Boyle is now in the bullpen, and Ross Stripling is now in the bullpen, and Hogan Harris is now in the bullpen. Oh my God!
Yeah. His profile too, like coming up through the Reds minor leagues, was always that guy that is like, yes, he is going to strike out a lot of guys. He's going to throw over 100, and he's going to walk the guys that he doesn't strike out. And
yeah, well,
that's kind of what that looked like.
Yeah. 1/3 of an inning, no hits, no strikeouts, 3 walks. All 3 came in to score. Okay. If we say that the win stat is one we should throw away, so is the hold stat.
Oh,
because for this, I understand why we have the hold stat. We need to have some sort of, we needed something to give to the middle relievers. Okay.
Yeah.
I understood its heart was in the right place. 1 inning pitched, 3 walks, 3 earned runs. He got a hold. He got to put that in the positive column. How do you do that? Well, I got a hold. There was a couple times I saw someone got a hold and the loss. I mean, that can't happen.
Right.
But
it doesn't make any sense.
No sense at all. Hogan Harris came out. He pitched a couple of shutout innings. And then came the other grotesque relief performance of the day. And this was from Mr. Diaz, who recorded 1 fewer out
than Joe Boyle did.
did.
Yeah, Alexis Diaz, I don't know. And the pitch itself wasn't over the plate, but it was a spinning, hanging, breaking ball. And quite frankly, didn't have to be over the plate because anything plateward, Lawrence Butler has been hitting out of the ballpark in the series. 5 home runs in 3 games against the Reds. But Alexis Diaz has just been bad this year. And it's so funny because there were people that were throwing, you talk about wins, you talk about holds, saves. They were throwing the blown save statistic in my face and saying he hadn't blown a save since May. He blew a save like a couple of days ago. Well, he blown 2 in the last week. And if you want to use that stat, there you go. That's not a stat that I care about when it comes to relievers. Talk about strikeouts, talk about walks, talk about homers allowed. He hasn't had a good year in 2 of those 3. He's actually been okay at limiting the
Yeah.
home runs. That Lawrence Butler one was a little bit of an aberration for him, but he has allowed a lot of base runners this season, and he has just looked bad. But he has continued to be trotted out there every single day as the Reds closer. They haven't used him like they used him in years past, where it was like,
Yeah.
all right, toughest situation, we'll bring him in. They've used him as a closer, but that was so frustrating to see, especially on the back of the fact that Tony Santillan came in the 7th inning, got 2 outs, and then pitched all of the 8th inning, went 1, 2, 3, and threw less than 20 pitches doing that. We're like, hey, bring Santillan back out. Diaz has kind of been rough here recently. Maybe leave Santillan in the game. Nah.
Okay, when we come back, I'm going to build on that of the why not leave this person in, and the tyranny of the save raising its very, very ugly head. All right, let's hear from our friends over at Liquid IV. Now, Jeff, I know you and I, we go to a lot of ball games. It's pretty hot here in California these days. I'm sure it's not really chilly where you are.
Temperature on the dash. Temperature on the dash at 100 today, Sully. 100. You got to stay hydrated.
Yeah, you got to stay hydrated. You're not going to get hydrated eating ice cream out of those little plastic helmets or pounding soda. What you should do, you should use your Liquid IV. And when you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's popsicle firecracker flavor. It's a surefire summer hit. You get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powered hydration brand in America, because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. Speaking about indulgent hydration, do you have a favorite Liquid IV?
Oh, man, that popsicle firecracker is a banger. Absolutely tasty. Got the citrus, got the berry flavor, and it just makes your water like super water. Kind of like you said, hydrates you twice as much as a bottle of water, and it tastes twice as good too.
Well, I love the raspberry flavor. You always have me at raspberry. Raspberry, that's my flavor. But you can get the acai berry, you get the lemon lime, and you get the pina colada. Don't get caught in the rain. Tear, pour, live more. 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates you better than water alone. And it's powered by LIV Hydroscience. That's trademarked. It's an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into an extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, always gluten-free, always vegan, always dairy-free, always soy-free, always worry-free. No more thirsty summers. When you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV, get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at the checkout. That's $20 off your first order when you shop for better hydration using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Sing that song with me. liquidiv.com. Hey, should we talk a little bit about our good friends over at Gametime? You know
Absolutely.
about Gametime.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what I got my Gametime tickets for? I got my Gametime tickets for a afternoon game between the A's and the Rangers, which also will happen to be the final Oakland A's game. I will be there, and I know where I like to sit in the Coliseum. Second deck, behind home plate, a little bit up the first base line. That's exactly where I'm sitting. And I like where I'm sitting. I know where I'm sitting. Do you know why? Seat views. I get a panoramic view from the seat in the app before I buy it. And I got the lowest price guarantee, because if it wasn't, Gametime would credit me 110% of the difference. And the purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing agency. The Gametime Picks curation makes it easy to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Do you have anything to say about this fine organization, Mr. Jeffrey Carr?
I'm all about Gametime, Sully, especially coming up here on Friday when the Reds have a doubleheader against the Brewers. I'm going to be using them not once, but twice to go to both of these games, because the longer that I wait, which I'm pretty good at doing, the lower the price gets, which is pretty awesome.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's so amazing that I almost read more about Liquid IV, but I'm not going to do that. So here's what I got to tell you to do. You got to take the guesswork out of buying the tickets with the Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code. Let me spell it out for you. LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it?
Game time.
Game time. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked On A's or Locked On Reds your first listen. Hey, Jeff, what could their second listen be?
Their second listen could be you, Sully, on your other show, Locked On MLB, because I know that you are going to be delivering us some daily MLB takes and information and analysis, and you're going to add your trademark wit and your wonderful humor that you have, and you're going to get us ready for the Fall Classic every single day, because Locked On MLB is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's here on YouTube. It's on your favorite podcasting app, everywhere you find Locked On A's and Locked On Reds.
By the way, my humor is trademarked at the same place that Liquid IV has trademarked their LIV Hydroscience. That's how I know about it. We would hang out there. All right.
Good
Now I will set up the fact that the seeds of the loss today were planted in the victory on Tuesday night. Now, and you can rewind the tape because I talked about this. I actually talked about this. This is not me being a Monday morning quarterback here. I brought this up on that game, which again, I was thrilled. Again, a very weird game. That game was a strange game because, as I said in that episode, the Reds outplayed the A's completely, except for the seventh inning. Mm-hmm. They outpitched them, they outhit them, they outfielded them, except for one dumb inning where Max Schumann, and again, they wiggled out of a bases loaded situation, the Reds did in the sixth inning. And at that moment, I said, okay, this game's over. This is one of those 1-0 losses. And then Schumann hits the 2-out home run. Butler hits one of 70 home runs he hit this weekend. And they tacked on another run in the eighth, but then I talked about this. The Locked On A's fans, if the Locked On Reds fans don't believe me, tell them, send the time code, because the Reds were rallying. They got the bases loaded walk, and they brought in Stripling. And Stripling, they've sort of given Stripling a new role. He's kind of their long man. And he's obviously a talented pitcher with a nice career, and the A's have moved him to the bullpen to have him kind of be the jack of all trades, kind of what Ramiro Mendoza was from the Yankees when in the late 90s. And he came in and he threw 3 pitches to Marte to get the out, to send it to the ninth. And as I was watching the game, and I talked about this in a show about back-to-back A's wins, that, hey, he threw 2 pitches and got out of a big jam. And it was not a one-run game. And I remember thinking while I was listening to the game, don't bring in Miller. Don't bring in Miller here. It's 5-2. Give Stripling through 2 pitches. Have him come out. Now, yes, he was facing India and Dela Cruz and Stevenson, so he was facing some hitters with some pop, but he had a 3-run lead to play with. Right. And I thought there's no need to burn Miller at this point, especially because they didn't have Miller for a month, and you should, if you could win game 1 of the series and have Miller rested and ready.
Playing with house money.
You play with house money. Well, they lived by the tyranny of the save. Oh, and sorry, my headphones are falling off my head, but oh no, it's a save situation. And according to the Magna Carta, you have to bring in your closer in a save situation. Yeah. And Miller came in, and as when Tony La Russa once talked about Dave Stewart having a bad performance at Dave Stewart's peak, and La Russa shrugged and he said, well, even Sinatra has to clear his throat, just like you cleared your throat right there. Well, Miller had a demonstrably bad outing. He threw 31 pitches. He let up 4 hits. And the only reason he didn't blow the save was by some reason the runner wasn't sent home on that play that should have been a game-tying situation. So Miller gets out of it. He gets the save, even though he didn't pitch particularly well. But God forbid we remove the save stat. And then last night, Miller came in, wasn't as sharp as he let up 2 hits. He let up a hit and a walk, and he threw 25 pitches. So there was not a way in heaven or in hell that Miller was going to pitch tonight.
Right.
Because he had back-to-back games where he was shaky and lucky. So we all knew he wasn't going to pitch tonight. And so when the A's took the lead after the phenomenal relief performance that they got, you knew that they were going to basically bring Stomper the Elephant in to pitch the bottom of the 9th.
Right.
And the minute the first runner got on, I said, this game's over. And it was.
Right.
There were 3 grotesque relief appearances tonight or this afternoon. And the A's said, hold my beer. And
I was watching,
yeah.
I was watching that game thinking, thankfully the Reds had the last at bat, because it felt like whoever had the last at bat was going to win this game, because neither team, the Reds had blown through so many relief pitchers in the first 2 games because they're depleted. They don't have any starting pitchers right now. Literally all 5 of their starting rotation on opening day is either on the IL or going to pitch for the Brewers on Saturday. So they are just working with what they have, and they decided that they weren't going to call anybody else up and just do all bullpen. So they pitched everybody. They were about to call you and me to throw them on the field there. So those first 2 games were so frustrating to watch.
But again, this just shows that baseball, this is one of the reasons why baseball is the greatest game of them all, is that the games are not played in a vacuum.
Right.
And they lost today because they didn't let Ross Stripling complete the game on Tuesday. Because even if Miller had his shaky outing yesterday, he would have been available today. If they had a 3-run lead and brought in Miller, they're winning this game. And if Stripling holds game 1 of this series and they have Miller available for this game, this is a sweep. Yeah. Now, A's fans, as I said, the key for the A's is to avoid 100 losses. It looks like they're going to do that. Try to avoid 90 losses and finish ahead of the Angels, so that you say you've improved by at least 13 games and are not a last place team. That's pretty good. And if you go into someone else's park and take 2 out of 3, normally I'd be jumping up and down. But you had a chance to sweep. And why didn't you sweep? Because of the tyranny of the save. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. Watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as few as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed, and it's available in more than 30 states across the country, including Texas, Georgia, and right here in California. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Thanks so much for making Locked On A's your first listen today. Now check out my other show, Locked On MLB, where I get you prepared for the Fall Classic. I got it covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. All right, wrapping things up here with Jeff Carr. I just got to say, on Locked On MLB, we gave a tribute to Joey Votto, who I believe is a Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe that the more we understand advanced metrics, the kinder it will be. I don't know if he'll get on the first ballot. And here's the deal. It does. I was at the Hall of Fame earlier this year. It does not say on the plaques which ballot you got in on. It just says you're a Hall of Famer. I think he's one of the most insanely easy players to root for maybe I've ever seen. And it's baseball's really going to miss him. And I think that we won't miss him because he's inevitably going to be a media star. He is going to be an announcer. I've said this on Locked On MLB. I'll say it here. I hope the hell he replaces John Smoltz, because John Smoltz is the grumpy old man telling you how good things were. Actually, do you know what he is? You got the Star Wars shirt on. He's the person who sits in Avengers Infinity War saying, Empire Strikes Back was better. I like Raiders was better.
Yeah.
Road Warrior was better. None of you know what it's like to watch good movies. Like, God, can we get somebody who at least likes the game to call
And
him?
there was like a great, I don't know, spiel, more of a monologue. Back in 2022, he spent a couple of games up in the booth for Bally Sports because he was recovering from a labor and surgery. He wasn't going to play the rest of the year. And he just decided to be part of the broadcast. And it was some of the best baseball watching that I ever did. And that was in one of the worst seasons that the Reds ever had. But it was all because of him. It was because of Joey Votto. But he had this monologue where he talked about why baseball is the best game. And he talked about, the differences of, going to Wrigley and you got the wind, and, going to San Francisco and you got the crazy weather. Like one day it's going to be 80, one day it's going to be 30, like that sort of stuff. Like he said, no other sport really plays in it. And he said more than just weather, obviously.
Right.
But he had this great monologue as to why baseball is the most beautiful sport there is. And if you go look it up on YouTube, I know we can't use it here because of broadcast copyright stuff, the trademark wit and the humor. But when it comes to what he said there, he beautifully encapsulates any resume that he could possibly have to be on television. And quite frankly, this is a dude, and I don't know if A's fans have had the pleasure, but Reds fans have. If you ever listen to him talking about the art of hitting, because he will tell you it's an art, it's not a science. Mm-hmm. But when he talks about the art of hitting, I could listen to him talk about that for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. So he is so cerebral, and he is so very gifted at articulating everything that he knows about that.
Yeah, but he's also funny as hell too.
Yes, he
and
is.
I think that's that'll be a really great combination. Well,
one of the best, before we move on, because I had to do this, one of the best bits was a viral video that somebody shot on their phone whenever he was in the on-deck circle, and I forget exactly where it was, but it was a visiting fan that was heckling him, and they said, I remember when you used to be good. And Joey, without missing a beat, still stretching, getting ready for his next at-bat, he's like, yeah, I remember when you used to be thin. Just went on about his game. It was great.
Yeah, that's just, I'd like to report a murder. Well, the A's are going to be playing the Rangers, Sears against Gray. I have to see my smile a little bit that the A's at least had a winning. The A's could have been swept in this series. So I have to find a little smile that they won that. And they are still only 5 games behind the defending World Series champion Texas Rangers. So if they're going to sneak into that, they have a bunch of head-to-head games, including this weekend. So there you go in that. Meanwhile, Cincinnati is going to be playing Milwaukee. Lauder is pitching for the Reds, who I believe I am tied with in all statistical categories at this moment. But tell us a little bit about him. He's coming up. He's making this is his debut, right?
Yeah, it was actually sort of rumored because for some reason CBS Sports had listed him as the probable starter on Wednesday. Obviously, that didn't happen.
Nope.
But he's coming up for the second game of the doubleheader on Friday. First game, Nick Martinez is pitching, and Lauder in the second game. Lauder is part of the future of this team. There are many folks that when they look at the next, really even next year's iteration of the starting rotation, they pencil him in because he was such a highly touted prospect coming out of Wake Forest. Very advanced. And I keep using this word when I talk to people about him. He is a cerebral pitcher. I've gotten to talk to him a couple of times in the minor leagues when he was down here, when he was with Dayton. Dayton's not too far from Cincinnati, the high A team for the Cincinnati Reds. And the way that he really talked about pitching, he's like, ever since high school, I have had to outthink my opponents. And I love that because I feel like there's a lot of guys that get to the major leagues on their ability to throw. He got to the major leagues on his ability to pitch, and he's got a 4-pitch mix. He gets swings and misses, but that's not his game. His game's keeping the ball on the ground and keeping the pitch count efficient and getting in and out of innings as quickly as he possibly can. And I cannot wait to watch a guy like that. I don't necessarily know. I don't know if he's going to get clobbered or not. The Brewers have some sort of voodoo magic hold over the Reds right now, but I know
they're a good team. They're a good team. I hate to break it.
They're a good team.
They're a very
they
good
really
team.
Are. I kept saying they were going to collapse, and they never did. They're a good team. But I know this. He's not going to walk people. And as much as we saw that on Thursday, that's going to be a breath of fresh air when he pitches on Friday.
All right. Well, look at Jeff Carr. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Tell the A's fans where they can follow you.
You can follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. You can follow the show wherever you get your Locked On A's on YouTube and on your favorite podcasting app.
And we're at Locked On A's on Twitter and same handle for Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Breaking down a completely mind-boggling and impossible to describe series that somehow felt like the A's lost the series, even though they won 2 out of 3 and had a lead. Just remember, forget about wins. Don't leave the guy in there because you want to win. Forget about the save. Don't bring in a pitcher just because you want to save. And forget about the holds. They're meaningless. This has been a Locked On A's, Locked On Reds crossover. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.